Okay. So I,
You and Amy, give me the thumbs up. We're ready to go because we have a quorum, and it's, yeah, it's 2 after 7, so we can get started.
So we're good. We're recording.
Okay. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Amy, you're all ready to go?
Yeah.
Where'd Amy go? There you go. Okay. All right. Then we'll get underway. All right. So we'll open the meeting up tonight. The first order of business would be to approve the minutes from the September 22nd, 2020 board meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
I move.
Okay, Lynn moves. Bog seconds. Is there any discussion on the September 22nd minutes?
no, I don't think so.
Okay, all in favor of approving? 1, 2, 3, 4, and okay, that's 4 in favor of approving. Any against? Okay, and abstain? Okay, Paul wasn't at the last meeting. Paul and Ginny were at the planning meeting.
Right.
All right, next up is,
Question,
yes.
sorry. Can that be put on the minutes? I think I asked for this once before. When you're, absent for a reason like that, where you can't be in two places at once, it's not like you've decided to just take the night off. Can that be put there? Is that we're at a CA general plan meeting? Instead of just,
Yeah.
I think from what I recall from the minutes, it just said absent. It's like,
It did. You're a step ahead. When we do the approval of the minutes, just add something to the discussion, and then we can vote on an amended version of the minutes.
thank you.
Okay, so now we'll go to that. Is there a motion to approve the? I'm sorry. Wait. I'm all backwards now. We just did the minutes.
Right.
Oh, I know, that was my fault.
I'm thinking I've just mixed up minutes and agenda. Okay, let's back up a second. So, Ginny, why don't you go ahead and make a second motion to amend the minutes from the September 22nd meeting due to that oversight?
I so move to amend the minutes from the September 22nd board meeting, please.
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
The amendment would simply say what I just said, is that, we had a valid reason for being absent and attending the CA task force on the general plan for Howard County. So, it would be great if we could, a meeting with the CA consultants, if that could be listed under Paul's name and my name. So it explains why we're not there. It's not that we just decided to take the night off. And
Right.
Got it.
Okay.
I don't know, that gets,
what?
All seconds, is there discussion?
yeah, just that gets tricky. I totally understand what you're saying, Jenny. You don't want it to make it seem like you didn't come for your own reasons, but then it gets tricky as to what is a valid reason or what's an excused absence or whatever. We don't really need to be listing, somebody went to Ohio for a funeral and that's considered okay, and I don't know.
Actually,
Somebody's helping a neighbor, like.
yeah, I see your point. That's a good point. So the fact that you're absent in terms of the board members, I think there is something in the bylaws if you miss so many meetings unexcused.
Consecutive, though, I think.
4 consecutive.
Yeah, but so these really didn't say we were excused. We should at least say we're excused. If you go to Ohio for a funeral or you go on vacation, that's an excused. So I see your point, Rebecca. Maybe we can, instead of saying why, assume Jonathan excused us and just say Paul excused, Ginny excused, something like that. Rebecca, if it was, you're on vacation or something, excused, Bob excused.
So are we then going to, from now on, list everybody who had an excused absence versus people who just didn't show up?
Wait, okay, this is a little different than what I was talking about. In the past, we have said in the minutes, like if someone wanted to state why they weren't at the meeting, we have added that to the minutes. But I don't think our bylaws really allow for excused versus unexcused. I think they just generally, discuss the need to be, or well, really not the need to be present at the meeting. I think all they really talk about is, 4 consecutive absences at a meeting would be considered I guess, giving up your seat. I'd have to look at the exact language in the bylaws. So I thought what we were talking about here was just stating for the record that, you and Paul weren't playing hooky. You were actually doing other important business. But I don't think there is any real room in our bylaws for like excused versus unexcused absences.
Yeah,
Maybe a way around would be that, Jenny, when you and Paul give your reports today, to report on, and here's what we did last meeting when we weren't at the meeting. We weren't at the meeting because, and then it would be in the permanent record that's what happened.
I accept that. That should work fine.
Yeah, but we have, I believe we have in the past in the minutes done exactly what Ginny was saying. If someone wanted to offer a reason for their absence, we did put the reason. It just didn't, make any difference about whether it was considered by anyone to be excused or unexcused.
Yeah, no, we have, so I just thought it was another thing and I just forgot to bring it up. But I did try to attend the meeting. It's not my fault when I tried to attend at 9:05 that you guys weren't there, that you ended at 8 or whatever. I'm teasing, guys. I'm teasing. Great work.
We'll try to be less efficient from now on.
I think
Jonathan,
we already are.
here, let me raise my hand.
Right.
Touche, Rebecca, touche. Let's move on.
Can I
All
say
right,
something?
Sandy?
Jonathan did say it at the meeting, so it could be amended because you said that they were absent attending that meeting. So it could even be in the opening remarks and it's there because I know you said it.
There you go. I've got an idea.
Perfect.
Ginny, would you mind withdrawing your motion?
I just did.
Okay.
Sandy's got the solution.
Okay, then I'm going to, just to make it all official, I'm going to motion to amend the minutes to state that when I called the regular meeting of the Board of Directors to order at 7:03 p.m., I also stated where Ginny and Paul were instead of attending the meeting. And I think that's all in the recording, so I won't even try to recall my exact words. We can just go back to the recording. Is there a second to that?
I second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay, that unanimously passes the slightly revised minutes. All right, now let me get the agenda back up. Okay, next we need to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Rebecca motions. Is there a second? Paul seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 5-0. All right, very good. Okay, resident remarks. Any resident wishing to make remarks, you have up to 3 minutes, and we would need you to raise your Zoom hand or turn on your camera and raise your real hand to let us know you'd like to speak. Going once, going twice. All right, I'm going to take that as no remarks. Okay, on to new business. First item is something that I put on the screen. On the screen. I'm looking at a screen on the agenda, which happens to be on my screen. And that's the capital improvement plan and deferred maintenance on our schools here in Oakland Mills. I think I specifically said Oakland Mills High School, but I'll also mention Oakland Mills Middle School. So as you know, that's something that the board and the education committee has been tracking for some time. And of course, when a lot of strange things were going on in the plan around Talbot Springs Elementary School, we, I think did a nice job advocating for Talbot Springs. And now if you go up the road from where I am right now, you'll see a big hole in the ground where the new Talbot Springs is going. So that was a nice success. But as I was looking at the capital improvement plan and also looking at a new deferred maintenance spreadsheet that Vicky Cotroneo from the Board of Education put out publicly a couple of weeks ago, I'm actually more concerned about the condition of our schools now, even than I was last year, because the total deferred capital maintenance across the whole school system is $803,919,000, which is a huge amount of money. I mean, you know, they're quickly closing in on $1 billion of deferred maintenance. So that's a countywide issue. The combined deferred capital maintenance on Oakland Mills High School and Oakland Mills Middle School is $161,892,000. So across the 70-some buildings that the school system is responsible for, 20% of all the deferred maintenance is in 2 buildings called Oakland Mills.
20%?
20%. Yeah, if you divide 803,919 into 161,892, you come up with roughly 20%.
How do you get 161 million? That means they haven't been doing anything for 10 years?
Exactly. No, they haven't been doing anything
more.
for nearly 50 years in the case of Oakland Mills High School.
No. I've been getting funding for that when I was a delegate a long time ago, but so it's only been 25 years then. So
No. Well, they put the addition on 20 years ago, but they didn't do anything with the original building.
Okay.
So
Right.
you've got an addition on the back that was built new, but it's kind of like Talbot Springs. The original building is basically untouched and unmaintained. So I've asked Vicky to get me more information because I was surprised by how much that dollar amount has ballooned over the past couple of years. And it sounds like the majority of it is because both of the schools are still running their original 1973 heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems, which is, you know, basically well past end of life. Now, Oakland Mills Middle is in the capital improvement plan for renovation within the next 10 years. That's assuming the funding happens. My concern with Oakland Mills High School is it is at over $100 million in deferred maintenance. So most of that 161 million I just talked about is in Oakland Mills High, because other than building the addition, they've done nothing to the original building. You know, they didn't do like they're doing to Hammond now, right? With Hammond, they're building the addition, but in the process, they're also knocking down parts of the original building and doing a complete renovation. Same thing they did over at Stevens Forest a few years ago. At Oakland Mills High, they built an addition, and you know, they basically knocked out the wall in the back to connect the old school to the new addition and didn't do anything to the old school. So that's how it gets to well over $100 million. My concern is that is the highest dollar value deferred maintenance in the system by far. You know, any building at all, it's the highest value by far. You know, that alone is a substantial portion of all of the school system's deferred maintenance. The Board of Education and the superintendent don't have Oakland Mills High School in the capital improvement plan. So, you know, the capital improvement plan is that 10-year wish list for what the school system wants to do with its facilities. So if Oakland Mills High is standing right now at well over $100 million in deferred maintenance, and it's not even the capital in the capital improvement plan, which is the 10-year plan, that means we're talking about Oakland Mills High 10 years from now being in 10 years worse condition than it is right now. So I wanted to get that on the record as old business, because coming up in probably early December, assuming COVID doesn't change schedules, and then through the winter and early spring, there are going to be opportunities to talk to our county officials, our county executive and our county council about the school system's capital budget. And, you know, just as we've done in the past, I think we're going to need to bring this back and, you know, talk about what position we want to take and who we want to talk to at the county level, you know, about, I mean, this isn't even a Talbot Springs issue. This isn't even about finding the money yet. This is about just getting the school in the plan so that they can ask for the money. Because right now, it's like there's this building that's a big problem in terms of dollars, and the school system is just looking the other way and looking to do other things. Paul, did you have a hand up?
Yeah, I have a general question. Maybe you can answer it, maybe you can't. But it appears to me that because there's a lack of maintenance going on, that there's disinvestment in in the older parts of Columbia. I don't know whether that's true or not, but it would be interesting to see where the rest of that 800 million in deferred maintenance is at. I mean, a strong case should be made for, yeah, we need new schools, but you can't just ignore maintenance on the older schools. And, you know, it's a form of disinvestment in the community. And that's the way
Absolutely.
I would make that pitch.
So it's kind of it's a bit of a mixed story. And you know, I think Oakland Mills is a kind of a decent example of how you know, the school system is kind of inconsistent in the way they do things. Now that Talbot Springs is getting taken care of, our elementary schools are off that list. You know, Thunder Hill was recently renovated, Stevens Forest was recently renovated, Talbot Springs is being rebuilt. That's great. Our high school is the worst, you know, in terms of deferred maintenance. Our middle school is in the capital plan, but it is right now running a tab of about 51 million in deferred maintenance. So the high school is at 110,682 million in deferred maintenance. The middle school is at 51,210,000 in deferred maintenance. You know, if I look across at the other schools that are on the list, there are a variety. You know, the other really high dollar one that kind of stands out actually is Centennial, and they're at $90 million right now. But they're in the plan, and that's a newer building. So, you know, you have Oakland Mills built in 1973 at 110 million, not in the 10-year plan. You have Centennial at 90 million, which obviously isn't great, but they're built in 1997, and they're in the plan. So, you know, there's some stuff in there that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, or if there is an issue with funding capacity, we might make the case for flipping the high school with the middle school, since it appears that the high school has a greater need than the middle school does.
Yeah, I mean, I would go first for getting them both into the plan. I mean, you know, having toured them and seen the condition of both, they both have their challenges, and probably one of the reasons why the middle school has a lower dollar value than the high school is it's a smaller facility. But you know, like the high school, it's basically on its 1973 infrastructure. Unlike the high school, it doesn't even have a new section. It you know, it doesn't have an addition on there. The other thing with the middle school, because the middle school is up for full renovation, is, you know, the middle school, like Talbot Springs and like the old Stevens Forest, it was built with the old open floor plan, you know, open wall-less classrooms. And now the middle school is, and it's almost like a beehive in there, full of, you know, temporary walls that were erected many years ago to create classrooms. So it has its challenges too. So, you know, my thought would be our initial position should be you don't stick 20% of all your deferred maintenance on one campus. You get them both in there. And then you work from there on the funding. And, you know, if the funding is in one place or not another, once they're both in the plan, I think then we can have the discussion about what the priorities are. But right now, Oakland Mills High isn't even a priority because it's not in the plan.
Jonathan?
Jenny?
Yeah, are we comparing apples to apples when you say Centennial is $90 million, Oakland Mills is what, 100 million? But Oakland Mills sounds like we have a lot of very serious problems. I'm concerned even about the quality of the air and everything in there from what way you're talking. 90 million, what is that for? I mean, is it really a very, you know, health and safety, or do you know what it's even for?
So that's, I went back to Ms. Cutronio and asked if she could get more information about what goes into the dollars on this spreadsheet she has. And she hasn't gotten back to me yet. So like I said, I wanted to get it on as new business and share with you what I had, because I think we'll need to revisit this. I mean, even if I don't get better information, I think we'll need to revisit this and just, you know, put our marker down when it comes time for the various budget hearings. But as I get more information, I'll bring it forward. You know, looking at what I have, they're both listed as both Oakland Mills High and Centennial are listed as deferred renovation and HVAC replacements. So it reads like it's apple to apples. Now, obviously, the two buildings are different, right? Oakland Mills was built in 1973. Centennial was built in 77. They might have had different builders. You know, the buildings are slightly different styles, so that might account for some of the difference in the cost of deferred maintenance. But you're looking at a full systemic renovation of both of those buildings, but the newer building with less deferred maintenance is for some reason ahead of the old building.
Yeah.
Jonathan?
Yes, Lynn.
I would just caution against, I mean, you're talking about the ages of the building, 4-year difference. And when we're talking about a building that's from 73 versus 77, I think, you know, both of them probably need maintenance. And I would just caution against saying why, you know, when we do put out an argument, and I think we definitely should, singling out 1 or 2 schools as the ones that should not get the maintenance and we should instead. I think that's the wrong tack to take.
Oh, no. That's not where I'm going. I'm just putting the comparison out there for all of us because, you know, all else equal, you have 2 buildings that the school system seems to be saying are in similar condition. You know, they serve the same level of students, right? They're both, you know, 9 through 12 high schools. So logically, you'd think when all else is equal, the older building would be, at least in the plan, ahead of the newer building. But the new, and I know it's only 4 years, but the newer building is in the plan. The older building isn't even in the plan. No, I think our approach should be, you know, very similar to what we did with Talbot Springs. I don't think there's any need to try to take anything away from other communities. I think what we need to do is question why our community isn't getting taken care of.
Right.
And that worked well for us at Talbot Springs, right? There were certain people in the school system in the county who really wanted to see, you know, Oakland Mills, Jessup, and I guess King's Contrivance / Hammond going at it over those 3 buildings. Right, that was the whole deal over the past couple of years. Well, we can only do 1, we can only do 2, you know, and you know, lo and behold, the communities just, you know, did their thing, made their cases, and they found a way of doing all 3. And that's what I would say our approach should be. You know, at least to start this time, advocate for our own, and don't worry so much about what's going on elsewhere. You know, when we go in and make our public statements. I'm just trying to give context, you know, because I think the logical question when I'm talking to all of you about the capital improvement plan, if you haven't looked at it for yourselves, is, well, what else is going on out there? And the Centennial example is just context for what else is going on out there.
Yeah, Jonathan, you know, what I find missing here is, in the past anyway, the elected officials would get involved in this, you know, to try and help out. And we're not talking about them at all, but they should be advocates that represent Oakland Mills, both on the state level and the county level.
Well, that was something else I was going to share. You know, I don't have all the information yet about what goes into this spreadsheet, but you know, the county council and the Board of Education had one of their joint meetings today. So last week, I did make sure that Councilmember Jones was aware of what was in and what was not in the capital improvement plan for District 2 and specifically Oakland Mills. Now, you know, obviously, I haven't had a chance to talk to him or interact with him, you know, today following, you know, whenever that meeting happened, but I wanted to have that on his radar so that when they're having that discussion with the Board of Education, you know, should things like this come up, he's aware of what's there and what's not there.
Well, what I was also saying is the state delegates, because some of this is state money being given to the county, correct? The state helps fund construction, renovations, et cetera, correct?
Yes, but we're not I mean, we're not even at the money part yet. The discussion of money doesn't even happen until something's in the plan. So we could start talking to the state delegation, for example, about Oakland Mills Middle, because Oakland Mills Middle is in the plan. Oakland Mills High isn't even in the plan. So there's not even like fake money. You know, remember when I was talking about Talbot Springs, I said they'll put things in the plan, and if they're more than a year out, it's all kind of fake money anyway until the money starts flowing. Oakland Mills High isn't even in the fake money category yet. So there's not even a discussion of funds because it's not in the plan to start asking for funds.
Jonathan, I'm sorry, I forget from the very beginning. Is it a Board of Ed decision or a county council decision?
Well, the superintendent and the Board of Ed put together the capital improvement plan, but ultimately the county executive and the county council determine what the basically, you know, what they're going to fund in the capital budget and what their expectations are. So that's why I think we need to be talking to them. The Board of Ed has not, the superintendent and the Board of Ed have not really shown that they care very much about addressing Oakland Mills High or even Oakland Mills Middle. That kept getting deferred.
But that's all going to change soon with the Board of Ed elections. Most of the people are switching over, so.
Well, the Board of Ed has changed a lot in the time I've lived here, and Oakland Mills High and Middle have been neglected a lot repeatedly. So, well,
but it's going to be different because we'll have one person actually advocating for our area versus the way it is now.
yes.
So I'm fine talking about it, just it might make sense to just wait and see what happens with that since it's fake money anyway.
I don't think, well, I mean, this is, we'll talk about this as old business. I don't think we should wait because if we wait, then we're talking about next year's capital improvement plan, you know, rather than reminding the county now that they're sitting on this huge deferred maintenance issue.
I don't see what's the downside of reminding the county of this now. Is there a downside in doing that?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, last year at this time, I actually went to the planning board and I testified at the planning board when the school system was making its, you know, kind of cursory presentation of the capital improvement plan to the planning board, because no one ever goes and talks to the planning board about this. And I actually specifically talked about Oakland Mills High not being in the plan at the time. And the planning board then went into a discussion around, well, you know, why are you doing this? And they started asking the school system officials, what's the logic behind this plan? You know, why do you have a building with so much deferred maintenance? And the school system officials, I guess, very honestly said, well, the school doesn't need capacity, so we don't put money into projects that don't need capacity. Well, you know, now that redistricting happened, obviously no one's in the building now, but Oakland Mills High is going to be at capacity. So, you know, that excuse I think has gone away. Plus, you can't just defer this stuff forever. I mean, yeah, you need to have capacity, you need to have enough seats for students, but you also can't have a building falling down around them. So yeah. I think we should just keep going at it, you know, the way we kept going at Talbot Springs until it happened.
Yeah, that was successful as a strategy. Just keep going at it.
Right. And most of our success with Talbot Springs did not come with the Board of Education. It certainly didn't come with the superintendent. It really came from, you know, going to the county, and then at one point even going to the state delegation and having the pressure applied from there. Remember last year, was it last year at this time? I'm losing all track of time. Sometime within the last year, you know, the superintendent did one of his surprise, I've reprioritized everything and Talbot Springs is back off the list deals. And it was everyone else's awareness, you know, our delegation's awareness, our county officials' awareness of what was going on that really led to the pressure to bring that back.
Yeah, Jonathan, so, I agree. And I think it was a success story. And what I'm trying to say is I think we need to continue that because the county's preparing their budget right now. The state is preparing its budget. Yeah, I know they're all going to be claiming poverty and et cetera. But we need to be getting them to look at maybe not $100 million from the state, but maybe X amount that'll do whatever, Y, that'll improve things at Oakland Mills. Maybe that's possible. Break down that budget and see what can be done. And if they can get the money when it comes into the county, the way that, well, it used to be played is you label where it's going, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So, and that's how we got the money for the Oakland Mills expansion. That's how we got money for other things. So I would
Well-
definitely get the delegation involved and the seriousness of this. You got the guy that heads budget and tax as our senator for this area.
Mhm. Well, and that's why I have it on old business now, because you know, this is really going to start at the county level, because remember, the other thing is that the state matches the funds the county puts up. So first, you know, we really do need the county to say, this is important to us, we'll look for those funds, because once the county is looking for the funds, you can talk to the state. So, you know, I'm trying to take it, you know, kind of a step at a time as we go through the process. But, you know, like I said, it's, what is this, our first meeting in October? I wanted to get it on the old business now while I get more information, so that when the time comes, I mean, on the new business now, so that when the time comes, we can get it on the old business and make sure that we're prompt in preparing, you know, testimony for the county executive, the council, you know, state delegation, whatever comes after that. All right. Any other question? Any other questions on that item? Okay, next up on new business, board position on CA Newtown Visioning for the next 25 to 50 years. Paul, were you going to take the lead on that one?
Yes, I will. And Jenny, please chime in as you might want to. Basically, I'm doing this for the same reason that Jonathan is talking about the schools. I want to make sure that we don't have to go through our two-step process that already this has been put before the board. So anyway, my briefing is basically as follows. We've been asked as a board to input into what's going on with the visioning process. We had to get to Andy Stack and Sherry Surratt over 2 months ago, a whole bunch of answers to a whole bunch of questions that I don't think I want to go over, but that unfortunately has not inputted yet into the discussions that have been taking place. To me, it should be, because the boards and their members should be listened to, in addition to the folks that have been appointed, to the extent that they have, to the visioning process. So that's point number one. Briefly, I want to go over the visioning process. There's a flow chart that we got. The first 4 sessions were to go over something called Discovery and Big Ideas. And that covered diversity, open space, civic engagement, housing, neighborhoods, public safety, redevelopment, village centers, neighborhoods, corridors, transportation, and governance. The next meeting that we're having this Thursday should be going into synthesis, and that's supposed to cover something called values, opportunities, solutions, and to get to a draft policy framework. Some of the observations that I've had, these are my own, and you all were given by Sandy a copy of the statement of work that was given to the CA board. both myself and Bill noted that there was not anything really that was going to be dealing with affordable housing, and yet the consultants have been pushing that particular apple throughout this whole thing. And that really bothers me because their thesis is that we could have an additional 7,200 rentals easily in Columbia. Now, that bothers me a lot because I looked at the current split that we have between rentals and owner-occupied in Columbia. The county provides that information. And as of late 2018, it was 42% rentals, 58% was owner-occupied. Now, we already have scheduled in the downtown something like 5,500 units and another 900 that are supposed to be affordable. If you take into account those units, and I'm making the assumption that most of them will be rentals, we're going to wind up with 53% rental and 47% owner occupied. With the RCL recommendation of putting another 7,200 in here, we're easily going to wind up with over 60% rentals. I have extreme heartburn with that for one big reason. We know, and we've seen it with our rental units, that we do not have civic engagement by renters in our village. They're basically AWOL. I understand we need a certain amount of rentals, but this is really flipping the composition of Columbia. And it goes with the entire issue of where affordable housing should be going. My personal opinion is it needs to go outside of Columbia, particularly with this flip. I mean, this is something that the CA board really needs to look at if they're expecting civic engagement from the folks that live here. It's not very good as it is. It will definitely become worse over time, in my opinion. So, the question for me is that the board should be looking at in terms of this update is, you know, what should we be keeping, what should we be revising, and what maybe we should be doing away with. The emphasis by the consultants has basically been on this affordable housing. When they talked about employment, there was no focus that they put on the employment centers. Yet Rouse's vision and what he predicated Columbia to be was a mix of employment, residential, office, retail, so that people could live and work here. I don't know where this employment center area is going to go. It's underutilized. There's no plans for these, what I would call employment hubs. And I just have a real problem with that. Lastly, I got today a survey from Kristen, the chief planner at CA. And I had some major heartburn with the questions because they were slanted from what I could see, as well as a lot of the answers. Fortunately, there was one item down at the bottom that said, what's your opinion, or something like that. And in most of those, I didn't pick any of the options that were being provided because I thought that they were slanted in a particular direction. So this is initially what's going on. Allied to this, we have our first meeting of the Public Advisory Committee, the HOCO by Design that I'm on. The first meeting is tomorrow. It will be interesting to see what is said by Amy Gowan and the other folks, because she attached the project schedule that basically shows the county half over with what they're doing. And we haven't been briefed on anything. Matter of fact, the appointees weren't made until last week, voted on by the Howard County Council. So it's going to be interesting to see what the CA board decides to do. The issue that I think they should be looking at is, what do we in Columbia have as leverage when we go to talk to the county council and to the executive branch? And I frankly think that CA is in a very weak position. Again, my own opinion. And they're in a weak position because they have not chosen to take on the design and approval for new projects that are coming through for redevelopment. In fact, they've been AWOL. And they've left it to the design advisory panel at the county, which is advisory only, to basically keep things on an even keel. My opinion is that they need to take over the design and ultimate approval of new projects from Howard Hughes. And then that provides the leverage that's needed before any project makes its way out of Columbia, before going to the county. So anyway, those are kind of my observations, where I'm coming from. I don't know what this CA visioning group will eventually focus on, but those are kind of some of my thoughts as I've been going through this. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. This is a big thing. I mean, this is the first time they're tackling Newtown District, and we have to be at the plate.
Hey, Paul, the survey you got, was that a survey that CA put together, or were they just distributing a survey that someone else had put together for them?
I don't know who did the survey. It was sent from Kristen. She didn't say who put it together. I'm assuming the consultants did because of the way it was put together. I don't think that that's something she would have done, but she should have curated the questions, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting to see how this discussion goes on Thursday night, because it's going to be predicated, I think, to a large extent on the responses to this particular survey, because it covers the main themes. It covers housing, it covers transportation. It doesn't, to my mind, it doesn't cover well at all anything called civic engagement, which I think is a major issue in Columbia. I mean, we see that in our village. We see it in the other villages. We see it based on the engagement of the CA board. You know, hopefully it'll be a robust discussion on Thursday. And it may be that we should be going to individual or not individual, to separate meetings without the consultants like Bill's Housing Opportunity Task Force is doing, so that we can talk amongst ourselves to come up with where we're coming from, instead of being, I feel like we're being railroaded in a certain direction.
So Jonathan or Paul, what happened with the, we were all asked to fill out a survey or answer questions that were put out by Andy Stack. What happened to all of that information, or was there much of a response from just everyday citizens of Columbia?
To answer your question, those answers were never brought up in the last 4 workshops I've been in. Now, who it went to, I have no idea. They should be brought up as part of this discussion on Thursday. If it's not brought up, I certainly intend to bring it up, because one of my concerns with the CA visioning process is the people that are involved with these workshops and the consultants are what I characterize as committed Columbians. We don't have the rest of the 100,000 people that we have in Columbia involved in this particular discussion. I mean, it's you know, like 15 or 16 people, and that's it. So, I mean, you can view it, it's online.
Yeah, not good.
But that's about it at this point.
Thank you, not good.
Okay.
So any other questions,
Well,
comments?
yeah, I'd like to just make a comment. Lynn, I think are you referring to the value survey that Andy sent that was presented to the board in an open public session last Thursday to the CA board by Sherry?
Perhaps, and I didn't
That was the village thing. Oakland Mills, I think, was the only board that chose not to do it as a board. You did it individually, correct?
Right, and I sent it to Andy and Sherry.
Okay, that's the one that Sherry, it's the values, and it was analyzed by Sherry, and she presented the village responses. In some cases, it was a board. Other cases, it was the board. In Oakland Mills, people chose individually to respond. She did the analysis, she presented it, was on our agenda for last Thursday, and it was presented. Then we had the Saturday meeting where the board was working on what we felt were the values. And then there's, this is going to continue in terms of then presenting this as a document. So that was done. I think what Paul is referring to is, and I will check, but I think you're probably right. It was done for the consultants to then work with us on the answers to the survey. You're talking about, Paul, Thursday's meeting, this coming Thursday, with the consultants. My concern is twofold. One, I met with Andy, Milton, Kristen, because I was very concerned that the consultants were not spending enough time on actual, what is a general plan? What is comprehensive rezoning? What is sector zoning? What is new town zoning? The basics. And I didn't really feel that all of the people on our committee, on our board and representatives really understood any of that or most of it. They really didn't understand the process. And I thought that was important. And we do have one of the consultants, the previous director of planning and zoning for Howard County, Uri. So they agreed to change their presentation and to include what a general plan is. I thought they did an excellent job, frankly, on that, which certainly showed that if you look at that, I don't know where you're going to put any affordable housing in rurally zoned section, which is a huge part of Howard County. And that's the point I kept making. There's no water sewer there, guys. How are you going to do affordable housing? So let's stop saying the county needs whatever the figure is, 7,500 units. This is not true. It's the area that's the water and sewer, you're saying needs 75, which means you've narrowed the land in Howard County, much of which has already been built, to say we are going to really get more affordable housing in the metropolitan district, which is the water and sewer district, much smaller section of Howard County. So let's stop playing games about this is going to be spread countywide, and Bill can probably comment more on this. It's not true. So that's a serious problem. Unless you decide to look at Western Howard County, and this could be controversial, but have something that actually Ruth Keaton and I suggested a long time ago, and that is along Route 70, have little village centers. So you're not doing a lot of development, it's controlled, but it's around Lisbon, West Friendship, et cetera, and it's out quick access to 70, but it allows for more multifamily type density. You could make it fairly small, but it would be retail, multifamily, et cetera. The point being, people then out there could continue to live when they decided to sell their farm or something or move to smaller housing, they could continue to stay in the area. We had 2 votes for it and 3 votes against it. And the farmers surrounded the courthouse with their wagons, et cetera. They obviously didn't want it because they wanted to be able to sell their land when they wanted and how they wanted and for what price they wanted, et cetera. So that's still an option, guys. And then you would have some affordable housing all over the county. You'd spread it. Right now, you're really, if we only would be honest about it, you're really talking about more affordable housing, and most of it on the east side of 29. And Bill, I'm surprised you're being so quiet at this point. But anyway, on the east side of 29. So one of the things, Paul, in the questionnaire we had to fill out, it did give options. One is, forget it, we've got enough, say on the issue of affordable housing, we don't need any more. That, well, I'm just saying, Paul, to be fair about the questionnaire that we had to fill out, that we'll go to the consultants and they will do their presentation based on that. It did give you that option. And then it went on to, oh, but we need a lot more affordable housing. And here's 3 areas they were mentioning, which concern me. Snowden, River Parkway, Dobbin. Now Gateway, I think Gateway is something that we've all got to be looking at in terms of development. It has tremendous potential. And what type of development is something we will be looking at with this group and coming back with something, and then you guys can react to it. But basically, Gateway has tremendous potential to either you leave it like an employment center, like you know the employment centers right now, Oakland Ridge, Guilford, you know what they look like, right? Do you want it to continue, or is it time to reinvent and reimagine what an employment center should be? And using Gateway as an example and really come up with what I call a sector plan. Phil's on the line here. Maybe there's a new terminology, Phil, that you're using something different from what I used to use, but a district plan. You just take a sector, district, and you just develop that and get feedback about on. It could be multi-use, could be retail, employment, office, hotels, residential, and you could deal with the whole transit, walkability, et cetera, all of that, and come up with a plan, open space. So that's it. Snowden, I'm trying to really think, how would you do a lot of affordable housing or mixed housing on Snowden River Parkway? What's left there? Dobbin is another thing. What is left that hasn't already been developed? The mall, they didn't talk about this, but the mall is something that some people are talking about. You got big department stores closing. Do you reinvent the mall? Do you have housing within the mall? in the Mall in America, our daughter's in Minnesota, they have 2 hotels in the mall now, as well as a huge amusement park. That's actually pretty good. I wanted the central library in the mall and when I was on the council, but HRD, the only property they'd give us, and Rouse was where it is currently located. I actually wanted it in the mall. I thought it'd be good for the mall and it'd be good for the central library. So there's a lot you can think about in terms of, instead of a mall being what you think of now, should it be a little more creative? Should it accomplish a couple of things? The real key for me, and as I say, they did have questions, to be fair, about the question. I'm not saying it was the most brilliant one, especially the first couple of questions, but they did have options there, and you could also put other ideas. For me, they're concentrating a lot on village centers, and there's too much of an emphasis, Paul, I thought, on affordable housing in your village center. In other words, if you didn't want housing like some people in Hickory Ridge don't want in the Hickory Ridge development, and I think that's on its 30th zoning hearing or something, other people want it. They want mixed use. Wild Lake is mixed use. So that's a real issue. What would you want for Oakland Mills? Do you want housing or don't you? What type of housing? What they're not looking at is something people talk about is, so you take some of it that we've got, which is too much, and you reinvent that. So there's a lot of things. Nobody's reached any conclusions, but there's a lot of issues. There's no question about it. So I could go on. I apologize. I've probably gone on too long.
No, I think your views are totally appropriate, and you know, where the CA board comes out is going to be interesting. Your point about affordable housing is totally accurate. If folks want more affordable housing in the county, they're going to have to decide where to put it. And, you know, maybe it's time to revisit Lisbon and Mount Airy and the rest of these small towns as places to, you know, put them. You know, we probably would get pushback on it, but, you know, from what I'm hearing, particularly along Route 1, is they don't want more affordable housing along Route 1. I mean, that's where Ball was going to put it under this exemption that he had for these 12 acres or whatever the hell it was in this council bill.
Yeah.
He withdrew it because I don't think he had support for it. You know,
Oh, wait a minute, Paul, let me interrupt you on that. I think it's going ahead, but in another location. I think it's Owen Brown and, you know, near Freetown Road, the Village Center, Lorien, that area. I think it's Mangione property. I'll check into a little bit more, but somebody sent me a note and said, isn't this the greatest thing? And I went, okay, what was the developer really entitled to? And now, because you say you're going to do something really good or you know, nice, you're allowed higher density. That's what's been happening in this county. People get higher density because they say 55 plus, they say all sorts of things. And that's how they get more density than they normally would have been entitled to. The other thing, here's the other thing I'm thinking. What is the impact, like let's just take Snowden and Dobbin, of more housing, mixed use? It would always be more mixed use with the affordable in there, right? Mixed incomes. But where do people going to school?
that's the crux of the problem.
But nobody's talking about that. I'm bringing that up Thursday night because there was nothing in the questionnaire about that. The consultants aren't talking about it, but that is an issue that has to be considered, I think. So I'm going to bring it up. We should bring it up Thursday.
Well, I brought that issue up in my response, Ginny,
Okay.
because I mean, people are kind of thinking too much in silos, I think.
Yeah. So let's get the school connection that I know, Bill, you guys are doing with your committee. And there's also another housing committee that's talking about, and this was part of the survey, what do you think about taking the older housing in, say, Oakland Mills and reinventing that. You know, what are the pros and cons of that? Add on a granny flat or add on something else so that the senior can live in their house and yet rent out the other section. You know, I forget what they call it. Bill, you'd probably know, but that's a big thing with the other, there's so much going on. The other group that's dealing with housing, not Bill's group, not what we're doing, it's another whole county group that's dealing with housing.
All right, I saw
Oh,
Bill
yes,
with a
go on.
hand. I saw Bill with a hand up. I saw Rebecca, and then we're gonna move on because we're way off schedule.
Okay, I'll be very quick. But with the Housing Task Force, we've discussed a lot about changing zoning, extending water and sewer so that you get a more balanced community development in the county. That's being discussed. The other senior housing group is looking at accessory dwelling units, ADUs. We're going to look at that too. There are issues with that. In terms of redevelopment, village centers, Route 1, et cetera, I've told the task force that each village center has its own village center community plan. And I read the guts of ours in terms of housing, which calls for more upscale housing, owner-occupied housing, and no more affordable below MI housing. The issue of survey, our housing task force put a survey online that had over 2,300 responses, all from all over the county. And so the CA could certainly engage the county with no problem. And then and we got some very good data from that survey, which is fantastic. Then the issue is, the key issue in this county is schools. Where do kids go to school? And I made this point in my whole recommendation to the Housing Task Force, and I've got it in progress right now on my PC, is all the schools in the county, 20% of them are within a third of the county average. 40% are below a third of the county average, and 40% are above a third of the county average. So you have a two-pole school system instead of a bell-shaped curve in the middle. You have two poles on either end, which is a national disgrace. And with that, you have tremendous concentrations of ethnic groups, which our Housing Task Force has discussed and said, wow, housing policy has really separated by demographics, by income, et cetera. That's a major issue. My recommendation to the task force will be to create 42 communities in the county. And my plan will be called Housing Opportunities and Balanced Community Development Ordinance. I want it to be made law. And what it will do will be take 42 communities, each elementary school, concentric circles out from the school, and where the concentric circles hit each other from other schools, you work with the boundaries there. And it'll give you about 2,800 on average, about 2,800 housing units per community. Then what you do is you have a spreadsheet, and down the side of it, you have housing, apartments, 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, condos, 1, 2, 3, 4 bedrooms, townhouses, same thing, family detached homes. And then across the top, you have percent of income as percent of AMI from 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40, 60, et cetera, on up to 200. And you map every one of those communities and put down the existing housing as it is today, so you can see where all the concentrations are. And then going forward, all housing policy must move the school farm rates toward the county average. That's my proposal. I've talked about it a lot in different housing task force meetings, and I have not gotten pushback. What we do have is members of the task force saying, you know, we have really separated people by race, and that's really bad. We've separated by income, that's really bad. We need to fix this. And I floated this idea, and people are saying, yes, we need to look at each local community. The county as a whole is fairly diverse, but when you get to the community basis, it isn't. So that'll be my proposal. And everything I think we do needs to focus on where are kids going to go to school. And when you have housing for 60% of AMI and below, you have a high probability of generating students on farm. That's critical. So that therefore housing decisions need to be made in context of the local community, so that basically Columbia, the older villages, have 8 of the 13 Title I schools in the whole county are in the older villages in Columbia. So the very last place to put any more housing below AMI is Columbia's older villages, period, end of story, okay? The Columbia Association, Board of Directors, management, et cetera, must take that position. If they don't, Columbia will die, period, end of story. Thanks for listening.
Ask Bill a question. Bill, you take your position, because I think this is a question too for Paul and I. One of the big problems around the county is the county has allowed the fee in lieu of development. So you pay in, well, you should have had X number of MIHUs, and no, it's just not going to work in Maple Lawn, so we'll put it elsewhere, I guess, where they put it. And they've been getting away with that. So I want to push that we get the council to just say the county council executive should be sponsoring that legislation a long time ago. Is your committee looking at that, or?
Yes, and we covered that at our last task force discussion-led session. And Kelly Sino gave us a spreadsheet of the last 5 years of where the fee in lieu money should have gone and where it went. And where it should have gone was in schools that are west of 29, south of South County, west of 29, should have gone into schools that had, 3 of the schools should have had MIHUs in them, they didn't. And their farm rates were 6% and below 5%. Where the MIHU money was spent was in schools, 7 or 8 different school areas that had over 30, 40, 50, 60% AMI. I mean, farm students, 60% AMI, 60% farm students. And I said that at the meeting, and I said, this is the negative impact of fee in lieu. We can't allow this to happen at all, period, end of story. I got no pushback. What I think is happening, if you are at the meetings, if you watch them on TV or go review them, my opinion is that many members of the task force, the majority, are very concerned about the separation of races, the separation of incomes, the horrendous farm percentages in our school system. I do feel, personal opinion, the day of reckoning is coming, and that this task force will take stands to try to modify this. We'll never solve it. We'll never get 42 balanced communities in the county, but we can go from something that's like this to something like this. Okay, that's what I feel we can do. So that's what I'm working on, and I've lost a lot of, since I've been on the task force, since last October, not one week has gone by where I've had a good night's sleep every night. Last 2 nights ago, I went to bed at midnight, woke up at 4 a.m., wrote notes about the task force, couldn't get back to sleep, watched TV until 7, and finally took a 2-hour nap and continued on, okay? So I'm head over heels into this, 100%. I wake up at night, write notes. I'm giving it my all. And I thank everybody who's been at our meetings and who filled out the survey. So thank you. I've said a lot probably for the whole evening. I'll mute myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Rebecca, you had your hand up?
Just real quick, Paul and Bill, both of you, because you're involved in this. Has there been any talk about, hold on 1 second. I'll be right there. Okay? Come here. Is there any talk about waiting to see what happens? I know a lot of people are predicting with COVID and everybody working at home now that commercial offices and stuff are going to, you know, really cut back. Is there any talk about that in repurposing what is now office space that will no longer be?
Not yet. Not yet. We're aware of it. What we have considered is looking at emergency situations in general. How can the county prepare for that in terms of housing, people losing housing, et cetera? We're aware that there probably will be some more office space, commercial space that will be vacant, and have said that depending on the housing around there, that might be a housing opportunity. But that's pretty much been the limit of our discussion on that.
Yeah, Rebecca, yes, the VA is very concerned because in terms of the assessments and whether people are going to be, they will be appealing their assessment and will get less than the annual charge for FY22, maybe FY23 as well, yeah. It is a big issue, you're right.
The discussion always seems to be about more density, yet with COVID, people are leaving the more dense areas and moving out to suburbs into rural areas because they can remotely work. We've got to be very careful, I think, in terms of looking at more density. We are a very small county. We only have 150 square miles, but it may be that we're at the point that more density will work against us rather than for us. My opinion.
I think the westward expansion or the rural expansion is a temporary blip. On the whole, people want to be in downtowns.
All right, thanks everyone. The last new business item we have is a quick one. We just wanted to get it on so that we can bring it back as old business. But we received an email asking each of the villages to recruit potentially a member of our board or another community stakeholder in the effort to update the Howard County Fire and Rescue Multi-Year Strategic Plan. So a stakeholder participant would participate in a 90-minute virtual facilitated video call with a group of other stakeholders during one of 2 evening offerings during the first week of November. And that's everything we know. So, you know, if we still had chair people of our safety and security committee, probably my first move would have been to go to the board and suggested that, you know, we asked one of them to do that. But since that's currently vacant, I wanted to put this out, you know, for the board to see if anyone on the board is interested in participating in one of these sessions. And if you are, or if you have an idea of someone else in the community who could represent us, we can bring that back for a discussion and a vote under old business at the next meeting, because that would still give us time to send the name forth for those sessions during the beginning of November. Any interest among the board members?
If I wasn't so involved with other stuff, I would probably be interested in it. I was a volunteer fireman and EMT in Columbia back in the 70s. So I'm not a good friend who is a volunteer. He no longer lives in Old Mills. He would have been a good choice.
Anyone else interested? Does anyone else have thoughts about anyone?
You know, we could ask Judy and Steve if one of them's interested. Another one is Carol Brain that does a lot of work all over the United States on disaster things and other issues.
Yeah, I think any of them could be good if they're interested in it. I'd be happy to reach out. All right, well, lacking any interest from a member of the board to participate, does anyone object to my reaching out to them? And if one or several of them are interested, I can report back and then we can discuss, nominate, and vote at the next meeting. Bill?
Just real quick, if we have no takers, I know someone who lives in Thunder Hill who is heavily involved in county search and rescue as a volunteer. And if we get no other takers, I can call him and ask him if he'd be interested. So if you get no takers, please give me a call.
Okay. All right, I'll reach out to the each of the three people mentioned, and Bill, if I don't get a positive response from any of them, I'll let you know when you make your contact, and then we'll go from there. We have a couple of weeks. All right, on to old business. Sandy, update on our request for a traffic study.
Okay, there's a big echo tonight, so if anyone has two devices running, Bob, you might want to turn your phone off. I'm trying to figure out why this is happening. It's just a strange meeting. So we emailed the county asking for a traffic study of Lightning View in Mellenbrook, given that the courthouse will open soon, and we asked for a base study prior to the courthouse because we had been told they would do one after. And the first email I got back is that they were not doing any traffic studies during COVID. And I guess, I don't know if it's staffing or if it is just because the traffic patterns are very different. And then, Jonathan, I don't know if you have it on the screen to bring up. They sent us the last study there was one in 2019, and then there was one of just Mellenbrook to 108, and then the other study of Lightning View, I believe, was in 2015. So I feel like I can bring it up if you want me to share
Sandy,
it.
it's not, yeah, you either have to make me a co-host or you have to bring it up because it's not letting anyone but the host share.
Hold on one second. It's covering up my share thing. I'll just tell you.
I mean, I have it on my screen. I can read it off, but I can't share it.
Oh, okay. Why don't you read it off? But what I want to say before he reads it off is that I feel like we should push this a little with the county. People are getting out and about. The courthouse will open, and a study from 2015 I don't think is a good comparable. So I feel like hopefully our board will want us to continue to pursue doing a vehicle speed and traffic study on those two roads now. I think, people are doing things during COVID, and I think the county still functions and the police still function, and I don't think it's a ton of manpower to do a study. So my basic point is I was hoping that you would agree that we should pursue this in the nicest of ways.
Oh, I thought they just put an electronic monitoring device out there. I didn't think it took
Yeah, I
much
know.
labor, but I think we also have to remind them of the genesis of this request, because remember when Rebecca and Warren brought this up, they actually cited COVID as what they thought was one of the causes of the increased speed because school's out. So we want it measured now in part because of COVID and the fact that the school's not open and there's not as frequent enforcement along those stretches of roadway. So I think we should push back. So Mellenbrook Road at Log Chain, they did a 3-day study, April 16th through April 19th, 2019. The total volume of cars was 4,462. Average speed was 28.7 miles per hour. The 85th percentile total, 34.2. 85th percentile northbound, 35.3. 85th percentile southbound, 32.5. The other study was on February 25th and I guess 26th, because it says 2 days, although they don't give the other date, but I'm assuming it was consecutive days. At Lightning View near Haylage, the total volume in 2 days was 3,649 vehicles. Average speed 28.4 miles per hour. 85th percentile 32.5. 85th percentile westbound was 31. 85th percentile eastbound was 34.
That was from 2015.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The Mellenbrook at Log Chain was 2019. The Lightning View near Haylage was 2015.
Yeah, so that's a long time ago. That was
So,
before
and actually in this document that I can't share, it says they're not doing speed and volume studies due to the pandemic. As you can imagine, With schools being in virtual session and many people teleworking, volume collections would be skewed unusually low. So my counter argument was that, you know, the observations of residents in the area has been, well, not the opposite in terms of volume. The volume really doesn't matter. If people are speeding, they're speeding. You know, one speeding car is as dangerous as, you know, one speeding car among a few is as dangerous as one speeding car among many. So I don't see why that matters. If the thought is that the speeds are up because there's less enforcement, less cars on the road, then all the more reason to see what's going on.
Yeah, do you think that they have a difference in speed study versus volume study? Since it's not the volume we're interested in right now.
I thought they did both when they had those studies. They used to, we asked for both.
I mean, if you look at the results of the last two studies in the area, they did speed and volume. And
Yeah.
it only seems logical that they would do both. Why
Yeah.
But I mean, if we can
only
just
look at one thing?
we can just explain it's not the volume we care about right now, it's the speed. So their reasoning about the pandemic, you know.
That, but I would also think they should do a volume because when the courthouse opens, they can at least compare pre-courthouse to post-courthouse. Because I think that the volume will definitely increase.
Yeah, but I understand what they're saying, that the volume measurement
right
is
now.
going to be the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not
Well,
gonna, it's definitely going to go up.
It would be interesting to see if, what the difference is, because one was 2015, I thought you said.
Yeah.
One was 2019, so that's not that long ago, but one was 2015. And
And it was
3,000 something, or in 3 days, or?
And it was also
Well-
before the speed humps on Thunder Hill, and that already has brought more onto Lightning View and Mountain So
Absolutely, yeah. So it'd be interesting to see the volume as well as the speed.
yeah, I mean that's what we asked for was both.
How
I'd
Yeah.
pursue
complicated
both.
is it to do a study like that? I mean, you just take 3 days, you put the traps down or whatever, the
Yeah,
counter, and walk away.
so I
Yeah.
would like to. I feel like we should pursue that. I wanted to bring that back to you. And then the other thing that we're there's a letter out. They were supposed to put arrows markings on the pavements that we reminded them. So a new request went in for the county to do that on Bendix Road and Mellenbrook, where the light is. And then we've also renewed the request to look at update us on anything that has happened in the past year that we might not know was going to happen at 108 Bendix and Thunderhill with the light signaling. They really weren't going to do much, but in case they have. And then again, the request that the county had asked for the state to do a study analysis of Thunderhill Road and 108. So that's a letter out there. And then lastly, Warren and Jessica Bella, who works in for CA in Community Services with Kristen Russell, and I had a Zoom meeting because the county is studying multimodal access to kind of the 103, 108, 104, different roads around the county. And when I saw 108, it was a great thing for the three of us to talk. And she pulled up a map, and Warren was able to really emphasize the Orchard Green, Red Branch Road, so that aside from us keeping it on the radar with the county and CA, Jessica has that as one of the planning things, hopefully for the state study. So that just happened last week. So I think those were the three main things with that, all those roads.
By the way, you know, for the record, and this may be all the more reason not to, you know, live on assumptions and instead have them do the study. You know, speed humps, you know, before and after speed humps. The 2015 study on Lightning View, which you would think of as the road that you're going to cut across to avoid the speed humps. If their numbers are correct over 2 days, that was 1,800 cars a day. The 3-day on Mellenbrook at Log Chain, you know, post speed bumps where you'd think more traffic is going up Mellenbrook to avoid the speed bumps, that was 1,400 cars per day. So there was actually higher volume along that route that we want studied before the speed bumps than there was after. Who knows? You know, it could be, you know, they were different times of year. Who knows what else was going on? But you know, this is why I don't like to make assumptions about what it is. This is why we ask for the study, so we know.
Well, Ashley's on the line, right? Maybe she could talk with Councilmember Jones and see if he can help with this as well.
I've copied him on the letters too, but yeah, Ashley.
Yes, got it. Yeah, yep, Sandy, I have seen us copied on those, so I'll follow up with him as well on it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, board chair report. At the Village Center, obviously we know that Second Chance's last day was Saturday. Given what we thought Cedar's plans might be for that meeting several years ago when, it looked like Second Chance was on the way out, I did send them an email inquiring about, what they're doing next with that space. And I kind of left it as an open-ended question because I wanted to see how they would respond. And, the response was the usual vague response that they're looking for a suitable tenant to come in and lease that space. So hopefully that's at least a sign that they do plan on looking for a tenant to lease that space versus, the following through on what they were rumored to want to do last time Second Chance looked like it was on the way out, which was basically abandon the building. But that's really all I have on that. I also, based on a resident question, I followed up with Cedar because if you recall, before they told us what was going in next to the LA Mart, all they really asked about was, whether there was any process they had to go through to basically designate a few parking spots nearby as short-term parking because the potential tenant wanted that. And basically my response to them was, well, if you're talking about the CA lot, you need to work that out with CA. If you're talking about your own lot, that's not our business. That's your property, and that's where it ended. So did have a question from a resident actually just last week about that, with the laundromat going in and with the ice rink opening and the crowds at LA Mart, what's going to be the parking situation there. So I did send a follow-up email to Cedar to see if they've ever followed through on what they were considering doing, when it comes to designating certain spaces for certain businesses, and I haven't heard back. So if I hear something back between now and the next meeting, I'll let you know. Otherwise, I'll update you at the next meeting. The other thing to report, I mean, as everyone knows, a week and a half ago, unfortunately, we did have a shooting in Oakland Mills, and a young man lost his life. Officer Lopez did, check in just to assure us that, the police are following through on leads and, doing all they can to figure out what happened and figure out who did it. Obviously, he can't share any details of what they're doing because that could compromise the investigation. But I did think it was nice that he did check in with Sandy. And Sandy, I don't know if I just stole that from you. Maybe you were going to report it too, but that's all we know at this point. And you all know how I feel about our local newspapers' coverage of that. As a resident, I signed it, 18-year Oakland Mills resident and proud parent of 2 students in the Oakland Mills cluster. I did write a letter to the editor of the Flyer. It was probably got in too late for last Thursday. Hopefully it makes it this Thursday. But, I just want to say on the record, I think their reporting on that was atrocious. And I think they have a history of atrocious reporting on Oakland Mills. I've heard from 2 of our school administrators, who are once again concerned that for some reason, when something happens in the Oakland Mills area, their schools get mentioned when it has nothing to do with their schools. And that doesn't happen in other areas. And, quite frankly, if you read that article, I'll just say it. It read to me like some kind of a cheap detective novel. I don't know what a desolate playground and faded yellow buildings had to do with a tragic crime scene, because neither of those locations were even the scene of the crime. I'm assuming the faded yellow buildings were, I guess, Holly Court because they're beige. They're not faded yellow. Yeah. And the desolate playground is at a school that is not open to students right now, and it's in the middle of a construction zone. So I think it was an absolutely absurd piece of reporting, and I think it continues a trend of the Times and Flyer just unnecessarily and unfairly ripping Oakland Mills apart. And the last time this happened was a couple of years ago, and I think both Paul and I were involved in this. It's when they wrote the article on the Village Center and LA Mart coming, and basically wrote the article as if it was going to fail. And you know, before that, we had other issues with schools coming into the conversation that you know had nothing to do with the events going on. On the flip side, we all know, because we've addressed it as a board, you know, other positive things going on do not get covered at all. You know, that same weekend, Talbot Springs had an Equity in Action virtual event, and their administration sent information about that to the public relations people at the school system, as well as to the Times and Flyer. You know, nothing at all. We know what goes on every year with the Concert for Kids. We know what goes on every year with, you know, things like String-a-Palooza at the high school. We know that when, you know, unfortunately students get involved in things they shouldn't get involved in, if it's here, you know, they name the school. If it's elsewhere, they just, you know, name it as a youth, a juvenile from somewhere. And actually, you know, when I put some of this on social media, like in our school group, and I also put it on a county-wide school group, people actually started pulling up articles to prove it. You know, they started researching things they knew about, and they were demonstrating how in certain areas, if something happened, you know, the school got mentioned, or other landmarks that clearly identify that area got mentioned, and those were landmarks that had nothing to do with the incident. And in other areas, it was just a general, you know, Ellicott City person, or name your location person, but very general, you know, nothing specific like that. So I think this is a serious ongoing problem that, you know, really needs to be addressed. I don't think this is something that Oakland Mills should continue to take lying down. And like I said, I wrote a personal letter to the editor. I hope others in Oakland Mills saw that and were outraged enough to do that as well. A few people sent me screenshots of their cancellations of the Baltimore Sun, since it's Baltimore Sun Media Group. But I really do think it's something we have to keep an eye on. And I do think it's something that really falls under our mission as a community association and a homeowners association, because, you know, we're supposed to, you know, we're supposed to promote and try to enhance the value of our village. I mean, that's actually one of our responsibilities as a homeowners association. So, you know, I think we need to consider in the future how we can respond to things like this quickly, and, you know, make it known that we expect, you know, honest, objective reporting. We don't want to hide anything that's happening here, but we want it reported objectively. We don't want a cheap detective novel in Oakland Mills. So those are my thoughts on that matter. And like I said, you know, we couldn't act as a board because it was in between meetings, but as a resident, you know, I felt I had to say something because I've seen it too much. So that's what I sent in. I sent something in as, you know, signed 18-year resident and parent of 2 Oakland Mills cluster students.
Thank you, Jonathan, for doing that.
I haven't seen it yet online as a letter. They had a lot of letters today. Did anyone see yours printed?
I haven't seen it, and I haven't received an acknowledgement yet. But I think the last time I sent one in, it took a little while. You know, 'cause I think they get kind of backed up. So I'll let you know.
Let's hope.
Look out for something if it happens. Yeah. Because the last one I did one, actually the last time the board did do it, I wrote it on behalf of the board, and it was that one about the Village Center, you know, where they completely misrepresented what was going on at the Village Center, ignored the new businesses that had opened, and basically made the Village Center sound completely desolate, when at the time, actually, with LA Mart opening, we were going to be down to just the one vacancy in what's now the laundromat. So they just, to be perfectly honest, after I read that article a few times, I started questioning whether the reporter actually did come onto the scene. Because if you read the way that was written, they seem to be citing the wrong complex for where the crime occurred, you know, just based on the description of what the buildings looked like. They seem to be talking about a playground that you can't even see from the crime scene because of the construction zone. You would actually have to walk all the way around the construction zone and then in between Talbot Springs and the construction zone to see their playground. It didn't make a bit of sense. It read like fiction.
Yeah, there was an article about the second chance, and I was so scared to read what they were going to say, and it just talked about it closing. So I thought that was going to go into a whole lot more too.
Yeah, I was on the lookout for that, and yeah, I was, you know, look, but look, that's to me, that's responsible reporting, right? We don't want to hide that one of our businesses in the village center closed. It's news. It happened. Fine. But you know, they reported it as what it is. You know, they didn't report it as, you know, second chance saloon closes. We were on site yesterday for the last day at Second Chance, and you know, there it sat forlorn next to two desolate barns, ignoring the fact that the two barns are mostly closed because of COVID, right? They just reported that a place was closing. Fine. All right, I'll step off my soapbox.
Two things real quick. Has anybody thought to reach out to the family of the resident who died? As a board, I don't know if there's precedent for that, if we can just offer our condolences or anything.
I don't even know who it was. Did it?
I
Was
don't
it
know.
someone from Oakland Mills? I don't know that they lived
So if
I
you
don't
look,
think so.
if you look at what's officially printed, it says that the victim was actually from Jessup.
Right.
I've heard, but I really don't have a way to confirm that he may have been here because he has family here, but I don't know.
I thought
I've
Sapphire
heard
knew
that his
who it
family
was, though.
lives in the Verona. Sorry.
What?
I've
I
heard
thought
his family, oh, sorry. I heard his family lives in the Verona, or his mom, at least. Amy, you go.
Oh, I thought Sapphire knew who he was. So I thought maybe he went to high school here or something.
Yeah, she mentioned a name, but it wasn't the name then of the, we didn't reach out. The answer is no, because I don't know who it is.
And then the other thing is there was a big to-do at the other barn on Sunday morning during the farmer's market. There were 4 police trucks.
Not in our building.
No, right at the other barn. They were all in front of the other barn. But I rode my bike through. I tried not to look too hard about what was going on.
Oh, I didn't get any calls, so it was probably outside.
Yeah, it was outside.
Yeah, I don't know. No one said anything. I mean, they talked to me about all the trash that was in the whole shopping center, and that's been cleaned up, and that could have been from the second chance closing, but no one mentioned anything else about that on Sunday.
There were some extra unruly gentlemen walking around at the market.
Oh.
On Sunday morning?
Yeah, I got the impression the second chance last party went pretty late.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't religious experience. Okay. Never mind. Near the Entertainment Center?
They went out. I mean, I'm not surprised they were going to go out with I don't want to use the word bang, but blast or something.
Why did the second chance close? I mean, is it, what was the real reason?
No.
What?
I don't know, other than what I read.
Just blame everything on COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, so money. They couldn't pay the rent and stuff like that?
There was something he wrote on Facebook. He didn't really go into too many details about the exact reasons.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, they said something along the lines of in this environment, it's very hard to run a mom and pop establishment like that, but they didn't get very specific.
Yeah, they at least had outdoor space, which some places like Bertucci's on Snowden doesn't have. So I thought that helped them.
It also said in some of the stuff that they put out that actually that they've been kind of in financial trouble for a while.
Yeah.
They've been kind of, and I think that's a common story right now that unless people are in really super good shape or they're part of a national chain that has lots of resources backing them, that it's just a little bit, it can work as long as everything's working, but when you can't hold up when something like this comes along. So it's not actually that surprising. It's too bad, but it's not surprising.
I remember when Bill and I met, remember Bill with the owner of Cedar Properties? They wanted to get the second chance out of there because they wanted to demolish it. I don't think most people realize when the village center was renovated, the Second Chance was not. So it's been there since the beginning of the previous village center. So it's a real old building. It's in bad shape. It's going to cost quite a bit, I think, to fix up for a next tenant or require the other tenant to do it. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was dancing around when I sent that very open-ended question to Cedar, because I knew that history, and I wanted to see
Mhm.
what they would say about what's coming next. So,
Yeah, they said they
and
could
look, for all I know, for all I know, they have no intention of finding another tenant, and they have other plans, but at least their response, in writing to me was they're seeking an appropriate tenant. So
It's
I
good.
took that as better than we want to tear the damn place down.
No, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. It's probably going to cost a lot, but yeah.
All right, that's all I have on the report. So I will turn it over to Ginny for her report.
Thanks, Jonathan. Just a couple of things. CA is opening more and more every day. You can now register with your to play individual basketball, not team yet, or with your family, and get a specific time, and you can play basketball. Roller skating has opened. Everything is limited, but it's opening. The Arts Center now is opening more. So you see just more and more things opening, which is good news, because that also means employment for people that have been laid off or furloughed, I should say. So I think that's good. As far as the budget, people can come every Thursday, register online and tell us what they would like in the budget. They have 3 minutes or 5 minutes if they represent a group. So I would just encourage people to do that or send emails as to what they feel is extremely essential that CA provides, certain services, programs, facilities, whatever. But October 19th might be an interesting meeting for you to think about attending. You really need one more meeting, you guys, but at 7 o'clock, we've given a whole list of budget questions that each, the board members had. Milton and his staff took some time, and they are going to present the questions and answers on the 17th, which is a Monday night. Pardon me?
17th? Is it the 17th?
I mean 19th. Sorry about that. Monday the 19th at 7 p.m. And if you want, I'll get you some more information and on that. But that could be an interesting meeting. And then the main thing about the budget that concerns me, yeah, there are people that say, there is transparency, there is openness. You just have to go online and look at the budget. I've been complaining about that for over a year, and I've sat down with the CFO and with Milton, and basically what I'm saying, and explained it to the board again on several times. Yeah, present the budget that's got all the facts in it, data, et cetera, but also present a document that's 3 or 4 pages with a lot of white space. And basically it should say what our revenue is, where it comes from, and how much it is, so that people understand that, because there's a lot of misinformation about how much money does CA get and where do they get it from. So do that right at the beginning. Then what your fixed expenditures are. You have to pay for these things: rent, utilities, certain things. You have to pay for them. You have no choice. So that must be listed and explain what it is and how much. Then you'll begin to see from what is being proposed as, say, a $56 million budget for FY22, will go down, maybe, I'm just making this figure up, 10 million. So you really only have 46 million. I just want a reality test to come to this budget. Then deal with specific facilities that people are talking about and really want to know, what's the story on Hobbit's Glen? What's the story on, and these are some I hear about, Fairview. Should it remain as a golf course or not? But what are the actual costs and what is the revenue that comes into a particular facility by facility? The Haven keeps coming up a lot. the Supreme Sports Club, all of them, just list each one and explain how much revenue you're actually getting and what is the source of that revenue, membership, personal trainers, classes, etc., and what are the expenditures, and then see what is the subsidy to certain things and what does that mean. So I just want to see something like that I think will be, my guess is it can be done in 3 or 4 pages as sort of a supplement to the budget or something people can hand out. I really think that's important. And it'll be done in a draft form that I want to share. And then if you guys have ideas about how it can be improved, I'd certainly appreciate that. I think that's enough. I think we've gone on. See, if I didn't attend, Jonathan, we would have been out by 8 o'clock. And Sandy's going, yeah.
I am keeping my mouth shut.
A follow-up on Rebecca's concern. I also, first I thought the shooting had occurred outside of Holly Court, but it turned out I heard too it was the Verona. I like your idea, Rebecca, and one suggestion is maybe if we call the manager of Verona and see if that would help disclose the family and some contact information for the family, and then we'd be able to follow up with the family. Just a suggestion. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ginny. All right, Sandy, your report?
Okay, we had our one and probably only, just because there's nothing else on the books for a while, rental this past Friday. And it was, of course, a challenge for Mark. Worked, he's great, Mark Tolson, and it was a mask challenge event. So it was fine, but it makes me realize that these large events are just not good during COVID. But we had the addendums and liability and all that, and it was fine. I mean, so to my knowledge. But there's nothing else scheduled. We've had close to 45 rentals that were going to happen between March and the end of the year. And 22 canceled, and these are our big wedding things. And 18 have rescheduled for late 2021, and one is undecided. So it's basically half of them that we would have canceled, and the other half, so far they're rescheduled. So we have calls all the time. So we're giving, Brigida's giving tours twice a week to groups that are interested for booking late 2021 and 2022. Our daycares are going great at Talbot Springs. The Village in Howard continues to meet outside, but has use of the office. Oakland Mills Nursery School at Thunder Hill has a target date of November, but they've been paying a partial rent for September and October to be able to use the building and have their stuff in there. So hopefully they have figured out something for November. All the work in the building looks great. The new floor upstairs, the new carpet. So it looks really nice, and we're going to do some touch-up painting now that our event is over and all the work is over with, because there's some things that really need to be painted, like handrails and stuff like that. Sadly, one of our open space guys, a CA employee, his name, I don't know his last name, but his name is Jose, and he passed away last week. And I mean, he was the first person I saw every day when I drove in, because he was collecting the trash and cleaning up and always had a great big smile and said good morning. And I know that the whole CA, team is just, I think they're just devastated. He had worked there a really long time. So I'm going to send a note to Open Space for them to deliver to his family from our board, because that was just tragic. And I did hear that he passed away of COVID. So, and his wife had been sick as well. I haven't heard how she is, and they have 2 children. So I don't know what CA is doing, but from us, I have a note card to send that will get to his family from the board and staff. Other than that, I don't have anything. We're still getting, we're getting a good number of letters of compliance. So there's activity there. And, we have our applications have slowed down from probably, 18 to 20 to now 10 a week or every other week. So that's plugging ahead. And I'll let Lynn, she can talk more about the laundromat process that went on. And does anyone have questions for me?
Sandy, not a question, but could you take the action to reach out to Verona Management and?
Yeah, I
see if
wrote
they
that
can-
down too.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And, in all that, I forgot to say, I am going to be having a check-in meeting with Jeff Fink on education and other issues. So if we're thinking that the victim could have been an Oakland Mills graduate, Jeff Fink may know something, so I'll ask him as well.
Okay.
If he knows anything more about the victim or his family.
Okay.
Okay, Lynn, Architecture Committee?
Yeah, just real quick, as Sandy said, it's slowed down, so it's about half as many applications, but it's still, it's still a load of work. And in our last meeting, which was on the 1st, we had 10 applications, and of those, we approved 7 of them. One was an application that had previously been tabled a couple of times, and so for lack of response, that's been just kind of shelved. One application was tabled, and we'll hear it on Thursday, 2 days from now. And one we gave approval to one part of it and tabled the other part, and we're going to be hearing that on Thursday as well. As far as the Laundry Force laundromat, the NRAC met once and had suggestions to the design team and to Cedar about the signs that they had proposed and had concerns about. And on, gosh, I can't think when it was. It probably was not the 1st. I think it was like 2 days before that. Sandy, you can correct me. But anyway, recently, the designers came back with Cedar and had 3 really good, had taken to heart all of the concerns and had 3 really good alternative sign designs. And one of them, the NRAC liked them all, but preferred one of them and had a couple of suggestions that they took under advisement. And so a sign has been approved, and along with it, the recommendation is to replace the green awnings that are in pretty bad condition. So that was one of the things that was of concern. So that being said, it looks like it's that it's going forward. And I was really just as somebody, not really involved in the discussions with the designers or with Cedar, but just kind of hearing how it went. I was very impressed with just how cordial the meetings were, how friendly, how everybody trying to come up with the best solution they could, and went really, really smoothly. So I think it was a nice example of how the process can work with commercial properties. And that's about it.
All right, thanks. Any questions for Lynn?
I have one. Lynn, do you have anything at CA on appeal or that they should be acting on or anything like that?
We have a couple, no, we don't have anything on appeal. We have
Debbie's in touch with Deb Bach, so.
Yeah, we have a couple of things that are legal.
Not Debbie, Karina.
That are what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Oh, no, Karina's in touch with Deb Bach about the CA cases.
Yeah, so they're kind of hanging out there.
So
they're legal issues, so we can't really discuss them. It's one of those things.
okay, but if you're not, I still, my usual thing is if you're not happy, yeah. Okay.
I think it's fine, Lynn. I mean, there's
Well,
good
one in particular, I'm just not delighted that it's dragged on for decades.
Well, we'd have to go in a closed session.
Yeah, right. So we can't really discuss it.
Okay, well, anytime, you want me to get involved, let me know, okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, excuse me.
All right, any other questions for Lynn? All right, we'll go to the bulletin board. Ginny,
Sorry. No, I can't think of anything. Thanks.
Okay. Bob?
Nothing much.
Okay. Lynn?
No, nothing more.
All right. Rebecca?
Nope.
Bill?
Nope.
Okay. Nothing here. Amy, anything from the front office?
No.
All right. Sandy, anything from the manager?
Not that I haven't said.
Mhm.
Not that I
Okay.
haven't said.
Oh, you know what? I do want to back it up a second. I want to give a shout out to Brigida for organizing the virtual fall festival. I thought it was
All
very
right,
nice
thank
that
you.
we,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I thought it was very nice that we had something. It's unfortunate we couldn't do the usual thing because I look forward to that every October.
Yeah.
But it was still nice to do something. And, you know, it was nice to sign in and see a few folks there and see, you know, see the nice opening talk that Brigida gave. And we stuck a pumpkin up in our window for the scavenger hunt. I don't know how many people saw it since no one passes by my house, but we tried.
And upcoming, there will be some kind of Christmas caroling event, and we're looking at lighting up the courtyard, doing something. Our staff, we meet every Wednesday, the OM staff that are remaining. And we have a lot of decorations, holiday decorations from the Polar Express. So we were talking about doing a great scene in the courtyard and somehow timing it for families to come and walk through and get some, you know, treats on their way out. So that's something that we have to talk about, but we will do something. And I think that might be really great. So
You want my window decoration?
I haven't seen it, but we have so much that it could really be a magical courtyard. So
I'm kidding. Look over my shoulder. Look at my window.
oh, that decoration I'm talking about for the holidays. I see it.
I know.
That's kind of creepy.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Uh-huh. All right. Well, I think that does it. So we are adjourned at 8:58. We still made it under 9 o'clock.
Okay, good
All right.
night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Take care.
Everybody.